The Pittsburgh Pirates played a tale of two halves in their doubleheader against the Detroit Tigers, earning a split at Comerica Park. Going to give my thoughts and reactions on that on today's episode of Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast, everybody, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every single day. My name is Ethan Smith, a Pittsburgh superfan for my entire life, and I take that super fandom, especially of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and throw it at you every single day here on the Locked On Pirates podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Shop Supply House for all of your plumbing, h-vac, and electrical product needs at supplyhouse.com. Make sure you follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Pirates. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube and the notification bell so you always know when Locked On Pirates is coming your way. And folks, we finally had baseball again this week. Pirates were rained out, quote unquote, on Tuesday afternoon/evening in Detroit, which meant we got a double header of baseball for the first time this week. And the Pirates are off today as well. So having 3 days off in the week for the Pittsburgh Pirates after a stretch of games where they did play quite a bit of games in a row before this. And it's interesting because the Pirates and the Tigers finished the season splitting against each other in both of their two-game sets. Obviously, their most common opponent or common team from the American League. So they will play the Tigers in those two-game sets every single year as part as what I call the Jim Leyland Cup. And you go back to April and these teams played, and the Pirates, of course, were playing very good baseball, managed to have a win against the Tigers in the first game of that series and lost the second. That was when after the Baltimore Orioles series or home series opener. And the Pirates lost that second one. And kind of in a rotational flip here, the Tigers beat the Pirates in game one of this series while the Pirates came back and won in game two. And this was really just a doubleheader that saw two very different games. The first game for the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is what we'll start with, was just a drubbing by the Detroit Tigers, who would win 8-0, kicking it off by scoring 3 runs in the first inning against Jared Jones. And I do find it interesting about the reactions that I see, especially on Twitter and everywhere else, about Jared Jones and the start that he made yesterday, because Jared Jones last night, folks, or yesterday afternoon, whatever you want to call it, he had his first really bad start. I'll just say that. It was his first start that you look at and say, okay, it wasn't the Jared Jones that we're all accustomed to. It was a start that Jared Jones made where you look at it and you say, okay, he's going to throw that one away and come back and bounce back. And it was just not a good outing for him whatsoever. It was the first time in his major league career that he did not go 5 innings in the game. He allowed 5 earned over 4 1/3, 7 runs on the day, 5 of those earned, 2 base on balls, 2 strikeouts, obviously allowed the 1 home run, I believe, to Matt Vierling, and 5 hits on the afternoon. So when you look at it from that standpoint and you say, okay, this is the first time that Jared Jones has really had a bad start. And even coming out of a game as a rookie, mind you, I know a lot of us, I think, forget that Jared Jones is in his first professional season. As a rookie, he comes out of an outing where he gives up 5 hits, 5 earned, only strikes out 2, walks 2, and his ERA is still a 3.55. Jared Jones is still very good, folks. There was a lot that he didn't usually, or that he didn't have, that he usually has in that start yesterday. We usually see him have the high swing and miss numbers. We usually see him have the high strikeout numbers. We usually see him mosey his way out of these scenarios where he does have runners in scoring position and does struggle. We didn't see that yesterday. He wasn't getting a ton of swing and miss. He was allowing runs early, by the way, as well. 3 earned again in the first inning. And he did salvage the start for the most part. The home run, obviously, in the fourth or in the fifth inning, did kind of blow the start up more than it would have seemed to be. I will say that. But again, it was just not really that great of a start for Jared Jones. Now, how does he bounce back? I think he just gets back to his old self. We also have to keep in mind here that with the days off and a multitude of other things, Jared Jones was off for a week. Now, that could be looked at as a very good thing, seeing as the Pirates are going to want to salvage his arm throughout the entire year, much like they're going to want to do with Paul Skenes. But it could also be looked at as a bad thing because baseball players, especially starting pitchers, are just creatures of habit. They are just naturally guys that would rather just be on the exact same schedule all the time and doing the exact same things. And when you're off for a week, that'll throw that off. Jared Jones had not pitched a game, folks, since the previous Wednesday until last night. So that's a very interesting dynamic to add to it, too. And you don't want to make excuses for the guy either. He did have a bad outing. His stuff wasn't there. He did get blown up and is a reason why the Pirates did lose that game. But that start could have also been way worse after the first inning that he had. He managed to come out in the second through the fourth inning. He found his groove a little bit, and the fifth came, and he just kind of slid back into it. So I think bouncing back for Jared Jones is really just all going to be about getting himself back on a routine schedule, which will obviously happen, and just getting back to that swing and miss and that strikeout stuff. You'd like to see the secondary stuff continue to work with the slider. That's the pitch that he loves to throw a lot. He obviously loves to use his fastball, but if you could start seeing him get back to what we saw from a couple starts ago where he was starting to use those secondary pitches to his advantage, then I think you'll start seeing Jared Jones come back and bounce back relatively easily. And he'll have a pretty tough test against it if it all works out this way, because he'll be facing the LA Dodgers in his next series or in his next start. My apologies. Allergies are kind of killing me today, folks. And as far as this other game is concerned, Tarek Skubal, folks, is one of the best pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. Drops his ERA to a 2.01. Was even a little frustrated that he didn't get to go out for another inning. 7 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts on the day, 1 base on balls, 3 hits. He's phenomenal. He's a very good power throwing lefty that the Tigers are very happy to have. Arguably one of, if not the best pitchers in the American League right now. And one of those guys that you look at and you just say, yeah, if you lose to that guy and he has the kind of afternoon that he had yesterday, you're not going to really get all upset about it. The second game came along, and we'll stick with pitching for just a minute. The Pirates got their 26th victory on the season in Game 2, a Game 2 that saw them put up 10 runs, 3 of those, of course, coming in the top of the third. But again, we'll get to the offense in just a little bit. Paul Skenes would pitch on his birthday. Happy belated 22nd birthday to Paul Skenes, who, much like Jared Jones, has just gotten his career started off to a phenomenal start. 6 innings pitched for Paul Skenes on the afternoon. 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 9 strikeouts on the day, and only 1 walk. Obviously allowed a homer to, you guessed it, Matt Vierling. Pirates should just not have thrown to Matt Vierling in this one. But what I found more intriguing about this game specifically, what from Skenes, was that much like Jones, his stuff was there. But usually with Skenes, you're going to expect it to be with the fastball. You're going to expect most of his work to come from the fastball work and things like that, because that's the pitch that he loves to throw so much. But the splinker, that wonderful pitch that we love to talk about so much from Paul Skenes, was really the pitch that got him through the outing against the Detroit Tigers yesterday. As Noah Hiles put in his piece yesterday, Skenes entered Wednesday having thrown 33% of the time that splitter sinker combo in his first 3 starts. The pitch received more usage against the Tigers as it accounted for 39 of his 96 pitches, 41%, and 4 of those were a part of his 9 strikeouts on the day. So that's the things that you want to start seeing from Paul Skenes now. We know the fastball is going to work. We know the slider is a pitch for him that can work. If he can use that splitter sinker combo, much like he's liked to do so far, but use it at that level and that percentage of usage and get nearly half of your strikeouts with a secondary pitch, folks, that makes Paul Skenes even more scary than he already is. And the splinker is a pitch that he likes to throw a good bit. He's practicing with it and tinkering with it all throughout his time in AAA before he came up to the major leagues this month. And really, that's what you're looking for from Skenes. And really, Jared Jones as well, is when they do struggle, and we've seen even Skenes struggle. We saw that last week against the Giants where he only gave up 1 earned, but he didn't really have his stuff. When you see these guys struggle a little bit, you want to see them pull themselves out of the hole. You want to see them kind of use their secondary stuff and be more than just 2-pitch guys. Like Jared Jones, a lot of people say he's just fastball slider. You'd like to see Jared Jones start using his other secondary pitches a little bit more to help guide him through these tough outings. And you saw that with Skenes yesterday. Now, he obviously, unlike Jones, got a lot more run support, getting 10 runs from the Pittsburgh Pirates. But for a guy like Skenes, this is what you come to expect. I mean, he's a generational guy. He's already cementing himself as one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Picked up his 2nd victory, again, also on his birthday. And what's interesting about it, too, is just looking overall at how Skenes has started. This was now his 4th start. 2.45 ERA, 22 innings pitched, 30 strikeouts, a 0.91 whip. Obviously has not allowed really any trouble on the base pass whatsoever. And an interesting little tidbit that I want to add is that he's gone a maximum of 6 innings exactly, and he's done that in his past 3 starts. The only start he did not do it was his debut against the Chicago Cubs when he only had 4 innings. But I mean, 6 earned runs over the course of 4 starts and only 2 home runs earned with, as I mentioned already, 30 strikeouts where he's had 7 or more strikeouts in 3 of his 4 outings. Folks, you'll take that every single day. And the Pirates have a 2-headed monster when it comes to Jared Jones and Paul Skenes. But Ke'Bryan Hayes is back. And how does he affect what's going on in the lineup? A lineup that exploded in Game 2 of the doubleheader yesterday. We'll discuss in a minute. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by Supply House. Shop Supply House for all of your plumbing, HVAC, and electrical product needs at supplyhouse.com. And you can get supplies from the site, that's Supply House, by the way, that's made for the skilled trades. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Because we all want to do the job right the first time. You don't want to have to go back and spend more money and do it a different way 2 or 3 times and spend even more money. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts. It's a lot of parts. From over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, you can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every single time, because I'm sure we all hate talking to the machine. We'd rather just talk to a human. Pros in the skilled trade can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. And folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. Make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, a 24/7 streaming channel, of course, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's available on YouTube, maybe where you found this show, and Amazon Fire TV, bringing you 24/7 streaming analysis from all of the local experts of Locked On and keeping you in the know with all the news in the sports world. In the Pirates world, again, they split yesterday with the Detroit Tigers, losing 8-0 in game one, struggling again against Tarek Skubal, who I spoke about already earlier in the show as being one of the best starting pitchers in all of baseball. They come back and they face off with a guy making his first start in Major League Baseball for the Detroit Tigers in Montero, and it looked like it. Kiter Montero, 8.31 ERA, 4 1/3 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts, 1.38 whip on the day. Just not a good one for him. 4 earned. And they really got after this bullpen as well from the Detroit Tigers. 3 earned runs on the day against Wentz, 1 earned run against Chafin, who also had 3 strikeouts in 1 inning. And Brisky would give up 2 runs on 3 hits. What I found interesting about this for the Pittsburgh Pirates, though, is it was one of those games that you got contributions from everyone again. And we spoke about that a little bit last week about getting contributions from guys and what it can do for this offense. And Andrew McCutchen had quite the day. He now has a team leading 8 home runs on the roster, went 3 for 4 yesterday with 4 RBIs, including a walk. So he was on base 4 times. And fun little tidbit for all of you, Andrew McCutchen is homered in every single start that Paul Skenes has made so far. Nice little trend to keep up with. Brian Reynolds was 0 for 4 on the day, still picked up an RBI. Connor Joe had a beautiful day, 2 for 4 with an RBI. O'Neal Cruz had that stand-up triple to go 1 for 5 with an RBI. Nick Gonzalez, who has just been a revelation for this team and has just really been one of the big components to this roster and what it's been able to do offensively, was 3 for 5 on the day with 2 RBIs, has raised his OPS to a 922. Nick Gonzalez needs to just stick in the middle of the lineup and be there every single day. Pin that for a minute, and then we'll get back to it. Rowdy Tellez was there, obviously had a hit on the day. Jairus Riolo added another RBI. G1 Bay, who I also spoke about, making an impact on this roster coming up from AAA, was 2 for 4, 620 OPS, 267 average, and Grant Cook did not get a hit in his MLB starting debut. Now, Ke'Bryan Hayes played in that first game, so we'll go back to the first game for just a moment. I'm kind of navigating this show a little bit today in a fun way, but Ke'Bryan Hayes was back, and although he didn't get a hit in that first game, much like a lot of the rest of the lineup, he did manage a base on balls. Kind of a tough assignment again against Skubal after he'd been out for a couple of weeks. But I find it interesting now that the Pirates are going to be able to insert Ke'Bryan Hayes back into the mold here, because they've kind of found something that's working as far as the lineup construction. And that's something that we've constantly asked Derek Shelton to do, is form a lineup, let it ride for a while. Now, obviously, when you don't have your best players, which Ke'Bryan Hayes included in that conversation, that'll mess it up a little bit. And now that you insert him back, I do think it's interesting, because we've gotten used now, I think, a little bit to seeing Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, Connor Joe, O'Neal Cruz, Nick Gonzalez. That's been your top 5 for a good bit now, if you really look at it and think about it, with usually Triolo, G1 Bay lately, and whatever catcher you have playing lower and down there. And then if you're playing Edward Olivares, he's usually down there. So now that you slide Ke'Bryan Hayes back into this, I think it's interesting because now that creates a dynamic where you can have your first 6 hitters kind of in order every single day. And I like the idea of that because it's working. You're seeing O'Neal Cruz do O'Neal Cruz things and score guys like Connor Joe, Reynolds, and Kutch. You're seeing Kutch in the leadoff spot now, who we were berating a lot starting the season very slow, which Kutch is notoriously done over his career. He has a 744 OPS now at the leading off. Leave him there. Reynolds has a 739 OPS. Joe an 820. Cruz at 726, and Gonzalez at 922. So there's your 5 guys that you've had for a while now. You slide Ke'Bryan Hayes back in, and I think that Hayes works really well behind O'Neal Cruz and in front of Nick Gonzalez. And I'm going to explain why. Because O'Neal Cruz, O'Neal Cruz hits the baseball better when guys are on the base paths. Joe, Reynolds, and Kutch can take care of that. Now that Kutch has cemented that leadoff spot, I was going to suggest having Hayes come back and be a leadoff hitter, but I don't think that really works because Kutch is just doing so well in that leadoff spot. So you can make it fit kind of a couple of different ways where Hayes could be in front of Gonzalez, which also wouldn't be that bad, especially if he's hitting because Nick Gonzalez has been an RBI machine. But I think having Hayes at 6, being kind of the handed off to the bottom of the lineup guy, is a good role for him. But Nick Gonzalez would have a better role at that. So I do think that come to expect it for the next week and change, especially if they're all playing and healthy, that McCutchen will lead off, Reynolds 2nd, Joe 3rd, Cruz 4th, Hayes 5th, Gonzalez 6th. And you kind of saw a glimmer of that already in that first game because Hayes did bat 5th in that outing ahead of Nick Gonzalez. Nick Gonzalez obviously had a hit. Hayes had a base on balls. So Nick Gonzalez never really had a chance to score him, but it is something that I think that we will see moving forward. Now, to also stick with Hayes for a minute, we do know that back injury is going to continue to nag with him, and it's something that he's even spoken about publicly, about hoping that it can be fixed. And it's just something that you have to deal with, truthfully. Yeah, you really just have to hope that it doesn't derail his career entirely. And if it's going to be short IL stints like the one he was just on, then so be it. That's just what it's going to be. And Hayes is a special player, Gold Glove winner. Bat showed up last year. So you just hope that he can manage to stay healthy throughout his career more often than not. But having him back in the lineup is a good thing. And we're going to give more thoughts and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates at the current time. And we'll do that when we come back. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by FanDuel. Folks, if you like winning money, especially when betting on sports, making sure, of course, that you do it responsibly, make sure you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon because right now it's winner take all in the NBA and the National Hockey League. Obviously, the NHL, both series still going on in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. The Celtics, of course, waiting to see who they'll see between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks. But FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150. It's a lot of money in bonus bets with any $5 bet that wins. Again, that is any $5 bet that wins to get $150 that you could bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and an official sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. And welcome back, everybody, to the final segment of Locked On Pirates. I almost said the final episode of Locked On Pirates. That would be really bad because I think you guys like tuning in every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. Pirates obviously will be going to the Toronto Blue Jays at Rogers Center this weekend, which is interesting. The Toronto Blue Jays are my American League team. I always liked the Toronto Blue Jays growing up for whatever reason and have kind of a sweet spot for the Toronto Blue Jays. So it should be a pretty fun series for the Pirates heading up north. We'll obviously talk about that a little more on tomorrow's episode. We are also at some point going to have a May recap episode that'll either be today or later today or tomorrow, recapping the entire month of May, the second full season of the MLB season that saw the Paul Skenes debut. We saw what happened in San Francisco last week, the big series victory against the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field, winning 3 out of 4. Moments abound to talk about in a May recap of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And we'll end this show just generally looking around Major League Baseball right now and see what's going on. We go back to some games yesterday. The Cardinals are back to 500 at 27-27, beating the Cincinnati Reds 5-3. Reds now dropped to 24-32. Looks like Matt Carpenter had a solo shot in that one. Ryan Helsley got the save. Nolan Gorman also had a solo shot in that one. The Rangers and Diamondbacks in a battle of the 2023 World Series, and a rematch, of course. Rangers win that 6-1. Corey Seager, one of my favorite players in baseball, had a 2-run shot. Also looks like Jonah Heim had an RBI double. Phillies defeat the Giants 6-1. Battle of two teams that are looking to make the playoffs. Phillies, one of the better teams in all of baseball right now. The Dodgers beat the Mets 10-3. Jorge Lopez had that very interesting thing happen last night. Not going to speak on that. Go check out Ryan Finkelstein over at Locked On Mets. I'm sure he'll be talking about it like a lot today. The Marlins and the Padres faced off. Obviously, they made that trade that featured Luis Arraez earlier in the season. The Marlins win that one 9-1. Baltimore wins 6-1 over the Boston Red Sox. Gunnar Henderson had a massive grand slam in that one, while Ramon Urias had a solo homer. The Tampa Bay Rays defeated the Athletics 4-3. Nationals defeat the Braves 7-2. The Royals defeat the Twins 6-1 in a battle of two teams in the AL Central who have kind of exceeded expectations a bit. The Blue Jays, who the Pirates, of course, will be facing over the weekend, beat the White Sox 3-1. I believe that means that the Blue Jays won that series against the White Sox. They did. They won 7-2 on Tuesday, and it looks like they won 5-1 on Wednesday. So they sweep the Chicago White Sox heading into the series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And we'll again be discussing everything that you have to know about this Pirates Blue Jays series on tomorrow's episode. Also, check out the fact that I will have a series preview of Pirates Blue Jays on Steel City Pirates, and also 5 up, 5 down. 5 players that are up from May, 5 players that are down. But make sure you check out my Twitter at Locked On Pirates and at MVP_Ethan. Follow the show on all of your social media, mostly Twitter. Make sure you have that notification bell on for YouTube and all of your audio platforms so you're notified when Locked On Pirates is coming your way every single Monday through Friday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. Folks, we'll have a May recap and a Toronto Blue Jays series preview and more over the next day and change. But until then, see you on the flip side.